floods are ravaging different parts of Kampala, different parts of Uganda, and across the African continent. Historically, Africa is responsible for only 3% of global emissions, and yet Africans are suffering some of the most brutal impacts fueled by the climate crisis. But while the African continent, while the global south is on the front lines of the climate crisis, they are not on the front pages of the world's newspapers. We've seen activists from the most affected areas being erased from pictures, from conversations, and removed from rooms. But how will we have climate justice if people from the most affected areas are not being listened to? Once flooded places will dry and bloom again. There is triumph in the city because the power of the people finally won. The world is green again. Nature has been restored. The planet and creation is respected. Another world is necessary. Another world is possible. And this is just a glimpse of it. And today, we shall continue to fight on in every way we can. We cannot give up now. We need to continue holding leaders accountable for their actions. We cannot keep quiet about climate injustice. Your actions matter. No action is too small to make a difference, and no voice is too small to make a difference. Let us keep the faith for the future, which faith will give us the hope for the world not yet seen, but the world that we can imagine, the world that I just told you about. And above all, the love for the people and for the planet. Three things should stay with us as we continue to organize and mobilize and strike and speak up and demand for climate justice. That is faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these things is love, because when we continue to love the people, when we continue to love the planet, that will be the strength we need to fight for a future that is sustainable, that is healthy, that is clean and equitable for all of us.
And COP26 has been named the most exclusionary COP ever. This is no longer a climate conference. This is now a Global North Greenwash Festival. A 2-week-long celebration of business as usual and blah, blah, blah. The most affected people in the most affected areas still remain unheard. And the voices of future generations are drowning in their greenwashed and empty words and promises. But the facts do not lie, and we know that our emperors are naked. To stay below the targets set in the Paris Agreement and thereby minimizing the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control, we need immediate, drastic, annual emission cuts unlike anything the world has ever seen. And as we don't have the technological solutions that alone will do anything even close to that, that means we will have to fundamentally change our society. And this is the uncomfortable result of our leaders' repeated failure to address this crisis. And the question we must now ask ourselves is, what is it that we are fighting for? Are we fighting to save ourselves and the living planet? Or are we fighting to maintain business as usual? Our leaders say that we can have both. But the harsh truth is that that is not possible in practice. The people in power can continue to live in their bubble filled with their fantasies, like eternal growth on a finite planet and technological solutions that will suddenly appear seemingly out of nowhere and will erase all of these crises just like that. All this while the world is literally burning on fire, and while the people living on the front lines are still bearing the brunt of the climate crisis.